Alright, YouTube, it's Ebola update time because I think the CDC might be making one of the biggest mistakes right now in all of human history. Certainly within the history of the Western world. There's a link in the description with a chilling title. Ebola infected American aid worker will be taken to Emory University Hospital near the CDC in Atlanta, officials tell Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Source, flight leaves for Liberia to evacuate Americans infected with Ebola. Yep, they're bringing people with live Ebola back to the United States. I can't possibly foresee this going wrong. I can't possibly see anything wrong with this scenario, let alone that the CDC had like live smallpox vials sitting in a cardboard box in a closet in a largely unguarded low security facility in Bethesda. Let alone the fact that the virus is not acting like it was before. I said before Reuters even broke the story that they confirmed that it was mutated. I told people, on 4chan, not on YouTube because I didn't want to sound alarmist to my subscribers here, but I said, it's not acting like it did before. The death rate's all wrong, for one thing. The transmission seems to be all fucked up compared with Zaire strain, which is what you would expect to see in this region, as opposed to the Sudanese strain on the other fucking side of Africa. I said it looks like it's acting totally different. It's not beyond the realm of possibility to say that this is mutated. And then a few weeks later, of course, they confirmed it was a mutation of the Zaire strain of Ebola. It's got a longer than normal incubation period. It appears to either be partially airborne, able to infect before symptoms become severe, or possibly both. And it has a lower death rate. You might think that's great news that it only kills 60% of the people who get it rather than 90+%. That's actually a bad thing. Because then somebody recovers from it, they're still potentially infectious. They go out, this is the middle of nowhere Africa, and they infect more people. Why do you think that the CDC would order that people infected with an potentially extremely deadly and highly transmissible disease, why do you think they would risk putting them on a plane and bringing them to Atlanta, which has one of the world's busiest airports and is full of millions of people? Why do you and has a climate similar to parts of West Africa? Why do you think that they would do that? I think what happened is they are completely and utterly terrified right now. I think that when the CDC and these groups announced a few months ago that they believed that the outbreak was under control, it was dying down because the death rate was slowing, the number of infected, the number of new cases was going down, I think that they actually honestly did think that. I think what you may have seen just happen in the last few weeks up to a month is that a contained version of Ebola, a mutated version, has reverted partially and mutated again. That the death rate shows this, that there are now far more deaths than in any other recorded Ebola outbreak. If it truly does take them 3 more months to contain it, that death rate will be probably higher than all former Ebola outbreaks combined. I believe what you may have seen is Ebola do 2 mutations. Mutating once, which made it less lethal, gave it a longer incubation period. A second mutation that has made it much more virulent and transmissible. And I think that in these new cases, I think you have to slice them apart from the first wave of cases and see if maybe there is a different death rate which could be indicative of a second mutation. I don't have any stats to work with. If I could look at them, I could probably tell you within 5 minutes whether that seemed to be the case. It's just simple mathematics. You just look at the number of infected people and the number of deaths. It's really quite simple when you think about it. It's easy mathematics. It's not physics. So what happens if if the CDC believes it may have mutated again and become more transmissible, which has led to competent Western doctors in full-body hazmat suits getting infected inexplicably for the first time again in Ebola's history? If they believe that, then yes, they would naturally want to bring them back here to study them because they would be desperate to get their hands on the virus itself to quickly study it, to see if there is a very real risk of it becoming a world pandemic. I think they're scrambling right now. I think right now people on Capitol Hill who have been briefed on the situation are probably drinking a little bit more than normal. I can't think of any logical reason other than they need to get a hold of these patients, and obviously they can't abduct some Ebola-infected African to do it. I think they're desperate to get a hold of these people while they're still alive to study the disease itself that they have been infected with, to determine if it may not have mutated a second time. It is extremely worrying. It's potentially even more worrying. Bless you, kitty. He has Ebola. Get him away from me. It's potentially more worrying even than the fact that they're actually planning actively to bring back Ebola-infected individuals to the North American continent. Because remember, there's never been a case of someone with Ebola actually being on this continent in human history. It has never happened before. What would be worth the risk of doing so? Do you honestly think the CDC is worried about losing a couple of doctors or aid workers? Of course not. They're a drop in the bucket. There are millions of them all around the world. There are many of them in this country. They're not worried about the doctors themselves, so what other reason would they have to evacuate them other than to run studies? To test this disease, to try to figure out, is there a new vector? Has it mutated again? What are we seeing here that's causing it to kill many more people than in the past? It has a lower death rate. It should be killing fewer people. If it were contained, they're using the same tactics that they've always used before to contain it, so why isn't it contained? That's the big question I think the CDC wants to answer. So as threatening and horrific as it is, and people are very rightfully so worried about this, as bad as it is that they're actually planning to bring back Ebola-infected doctors to this country, what may be worse is the reason why they're doing that. And I don't think anyone wants to discuss that. The media right now is also fear-mongering. I shouldn't even say fear-mongering. I mean, there's a legitimate fear. This is a virus. A hemorrhagic virus is about the worst possible fucking way you can possibly think of to die. Your organs liquefy. You shit out rotted chunks of organs and blood. You vomit them up. You sweat blood. Blood comes from your eyes, nose, ears, and every other part of your body. It then remains potentially infectious in your genitals for months afterwards. There have been cases where that's happened. They can test the testicles and they'll be infected with Ebola. The person's resistant. They're not sick anymore, but they can give it to other people through sexual contact. Very concerning. Again, maybe there's a new vector. Maybe it's mosquito-borne now, or flea-borne, or something like that. If that's the case, then woe unto everybody in Africa, potentially. Or it's mutated, which is even worse, because what if it is more airborne now? What if we saw it go partially airborne before, and now in the last few weeks, suddenly with this huge spike in cases, more people have died in the last 24 hours of Ebola than died in the first month of the virus appearing? That doesn't sound like containment to me. No, it's very concerning, because guess what? I don't mind if the world ends. The human world. I don't mind if there's a cataclysm that wipes out a majority of humanity. It wouldn't matter to me because I'm going to die someday anyway, and if I survive, I get to play real-life Fallout 3 or something like that. It's pretty cool. I don't mind scavenging radioactive ruins after a nuclear war, because I can take steps to protect myself from radiation. I know enough about it so that I can sort of predict what's going to happen. With Ebola, it's not so, because if it goes fully airborne and becomes sort of miasmatic like the flu does every year, then hunkering in your basement's not going to do anything. You're probably still going to get sick. And then you get to sit there writhing in agony for a week as you shit your organs out, and your intestine comes sliding right out of your asshole, wiggling around on the floor as you're farting out chunks of dead spleen. Horrible way to die. It'd be better to be crucified or shoved into an oven by far than to die of Ebola. And it's prolonged. You'd become so emaciated you just lay there whimpering softly. If you don't have somebody to care for you that's willing to risk their own life, you're going to die 100% of the time, because in that emaciated state you're not going to get any water. And you're going to be shitting so often you'll be completely dehydrated. You'll wither away and you'll die of dehydration, not even from blood loss. And much as I would like to trust Western medicine and say, well, it's okay because over here it's not third world Africa. Again, if the disease has mutated, we don't have a good track record on containing epidemics that involve diseases that have recently mutated or gone airborne, especially if they're this virulent. Something like H1N1, it's still out there. It hasn't gone anywhere. Hell, a bunch of vials got stolen from some labs not that long ago containing live H1N1. This shows you that the level of containment is negligible. It may be advanced on the scale of, well, this country's a lot less advanced than ours, so we're way better off than them. That's true. But full containment doesn't seem to be possible. Or they already would have contained it. I don't believe the diatribe about, oh, well, it's the result of local superstitions. People keep attacking the aid workers and burying the dead and slathering their hands all over the infected body. That's probably the case, but you would think that by now they would probably be able to identify these clusters of people and at least monitor the people who have been touching the dead bodies and having sex with them probably as well, or who regularly eat bushmeat. You'd think that they would get a handle on this. They appear not to have. They're bringing Ebola into the United States. As we speak, the flight is going into Liberia. That's insanity in the highest possible order, and the only reason I can think of that they would be willing to risk something like this, knowing full well that the public would panic anyway, is if the far greater panic is right around the corner. So this is a story that we need to be concerned about and keep our eyes on for at least the next month or so, if not longer, in case this has mutated. If you suddenly start seeing, well, now 5,000 people have died of Ebola, it might be time to invest in a good hazmat suit and a gas mask, although it didn't do the doctors very well. It might be about time to do that. I've got things on my watch list right now in case I desperately need them. If Ebola starts breaking out in Atlanta, though, it'll probably be too late. I'll, probably just drink myself into a stupor and hope I don't get sick. Very concerning indeed. And the link, again, is in the description. Peace out.